movement for me. But then around high school, it was uncool to ski. So then everyone was snowboarding, and it was annoying to go skiing when everyone else is snowboarding because it kind of happens at different speeds. I don't know. I would always have to wait a lot. So I tried out snowboarding. And one of the first times I ever remember going snowboarding, I was up in the mountains. I was in high school with a bunch of my friends. We did like a Big Bear trip, and it was super fun. And I was like getting to the point where I was trying new things, and I remember there was like a box or like a rail, and I was like on like third or fourth run, I was like, I'm gonna make it across that whole rail. And so I went and I did it, and I actually landed it pretty good, and it upped my confidence more than it should have. And right next to it, there was like a rail that you would hit a jump and then go on it. And I was like, I can do that now. Like, I'm going for it. And I remember going and like trying to land on the rail like this, but instead the moment I got up in the air, and the moment my board landed on the thing, it just caught, and I like face planted across the rail and then onto the snow. And it was pretty painful. And you expect your friends to come over and be like, "You okay, man?" and one of my friends did, Corey, he came over, he's like, "Are you all right? That looked pretty bad." I was like, I'm good. But then another friend, Connor, was just laughing at me. And he was like, this is classic you. Like, you're an idiot. And I was like offended. Because one, I was hurting and it hurt, and then someone hurt my pride, right? And so I came down the mountain, and I remember there was a group of my friends standing there, and I went up to him and I was like, man, Connor is such a jerk. Like, he is so prideful. Like, that guy sucks. And I just remember laying out a ton of insults, all just bashing my friend. And that moment sticks out to me a lot because not but like 2 months later, maybe a month later from that moment, my friend group had this massive fracture where a very similar argument played out with my friend and Connor again. But this time the whole friend group just like kind of were like, we're done with you. He made a comment that hurt the feelings of one of my friends who wasn't doing well in school, and Connor did really, really well in school. And so it just came off like maybe a prideful statement, but the way the friend group reacted was just like everyone hated him. Everyone talked bad against him. He stopped getting invited to things, and it was pretty brutal. And I remember carrying a lot of conviction because I was like, I think I played a huge part in this. I think I sparked the fuse, or at least gave them the okay to like attack him in this way. And so I just remember that moment distinctly because it showed like the power your words have, and even the power your opinion has, and the words you say about someone, the effect it has on a group of people. And it was top of my mind this week because this is exactly one of the points Jesus is going to bring up in our talk today is about the careless words we say, about the words we say, specifically in conflict. And if I could go back, I would change what I said in that moment. And I think that's what, as we read this today, I think he gets to the root of why we might do that and how to change, how to not have that approach, how to not leave conflict with more conflict, but instead how to resolve things when we're hurt, when we're injured, when we've hurt someone else. How do we resolve that? That's kind of what Jesus gets at in today's talk. And if you remember last week, we are in the Sermon on the Mount, and we went over a specific beatitude. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. This is going to set the tone for the next couple weeks, because what this is talking about is looking inside, looking at the character. This is what Jesus is making a point that in his kingdom, internal purity is much, much, much more important than empty ritual, empty following the rules, outward appearance. He gave that analogy that we did with the cup. It makes no sense to care about the outside of a cup being clean if the inside is filthy. This is Jesus' point. He says, followers of me, followers of my kingdom, they care about the heart. They care about having internal character, internal purity, more than other people looking at them and thinking they're pure. It's not about outward appearance. It's about the internal. And so that's where Jesus brings the focus. And for the next few weeks, we're going to look at common sins of the heart. Jesus gives us like 6 different case studies of what it might look like to care more about the outward than the inward. And this is where he starts. And what I love about this is Jesus takes it straight to an issue that none of us can run from. This is something that touches each of us. This is something we all have done. And I think it's why he starts here when he goes into the heart issues. So this is Matthew 5:21. He says, "You have heard it said to those of old, you shall not murder. And whoever murders will be liable to judgment. But I say to you, everyone who's angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Whoever insults his brother," the word there is Raca. It's supposed to sound like clearing your throat. Raca. It's like a term of disdain. They'll be liable to the council. And whoever says, "You fool," will be liable to the hell of fire or Gehenna. Okay. So one thing I noticed immediately is that Jesus starts with the same thing. Whoever murders will be liable to judgment. And when Jesus is recapping, he says, everyone who's angry with their brother will be liable to judgment. But now Jesus increases, right? He goes, whoever insults his brother, they're liable to the council. And the council is like the Supreme Court of the spiritual realm, the Sanhedrin. So this would be like a step up. And then whoever says "you fool" is liable to the hell of fire, Gehenna, eternal judgment. So it's like as the things like insulting a person or thinking low of a person, as these things to us might not seem that big a deal, what Jesus is doing is he's exaggerating. He's saying, in my kingdom, in my moral code, it's actually, these things are a huge deal, a very big deal. Those who are guilty of this, they're liable, they're guilty of judgment to the greatest degree. And so this is where Jesus starts. He takes us to a thing that each and every single one of us are guilty of. And this is kind of the point, right? Because let's do it by show of hands. How many people in here would fail this very first command? You shall not murder. Ella? Oh, I knew it. Get her, Adam. No, I would hope everyone in this room has not failed on this. But this is the point, right? Because when they approached God's law, they focused on these things that were very outwardly doable. And outwardly, like, you shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not bow down to a false god. These were things that they could do, and they could measure that they could do with pretty good certainty. And I think take pride in this fact, in comparing themselves to people who have failed this. You could get a sense of arrogance. But now Jesus says, okay, yes, you've heard it said of that, and it's good that that's a law. He's like, whoever murders is liable to judgment. That's good. But let's take it here. Let me tell you, everyone who's angry with his brother, they'll be liable to judgment. And angry with their brother, I think it's important to draw a distinction that there's anger as an emotion. That's a normal response to something bad. When you witness a crime, if Andrew walked up here and slapped Ziggy in the face, it would this is supposed to be egregious. I would be angry at you. I would be angry with Andrew, and that would be a righteous anger, right? If someone has hurt my child, someone has done something, I'm pretty sure Ziggy didn't do anything to deserve it, but then we could talk it out. No, but there's a righteous anger. You should be angry when you see something like that. You should be angry when you see evil in the world. There's a healthy anger that spawns up, and Jesus had this. Jesus showed this, and God has this, and God shows this. So anger in and of itself is not sinful, which causes us to draw into this statement, what unhealthy anger must he be talking about? And as you study this word, it says everyone who is angry with his brother. This speaks of an ongoing type of anger, not an anger that's a response. It's an emotion that like alerts me to this thing is wrong and I should do something about it. But this who is angry, this is an ongoing anger that you're choosing to remain in. In modern language, we would call this holding a grudge. Anyone who nurses a grudge, anyone who holds on to anger towards a person, remaining in a state of anger, this is, to Jesus, this is liable of judgment. This is what the tie Jesus is making here is this very thing is similar, is connected to murder. And he'll begin to draw this out. Because the next thing he says is whoever insults his brother is how our translation says insults his brother, but it says the way it's written is whoever says Raca to their brother will be liable to the council. And that word Raca means empty-headed person, or like a senseless person. It's a statement of someone's worth, a statement of someone's intellectual ability. You're essentially saying you're worthless. Someone who looks at a fellow person and says you're good for nothing, you're worthless. It's a statement of it's really devaluing another human life is what this is drawing at. When you look at another person and you devalue them, you don't see their God-given image, but yet you declare as judge of your life, of their life as well, you say like you're worthless, you're not good for anything. This is something I think maybe we don't say it out loud often. Maybe you've used that statement before, you're worthless, or I don't know, but this one maybe is just the most convicting. I think Jesus brings it to a level where none of us can escape from. It's this last one where you make a declaration of their, like you're publicly condemning them. When you call someone a fool, Jesus is drawing to this. You're making a judgment of their character. In this word is moros. What insult do you think comes from this same word? Yeah, nice. You guys are quick on that. Moron. So this is the similar type of idea. Have you ever called someone a moron? Have you ever called someone an idiot, an a-hole? Other words.
Whoa.
Watch out.
No, never.
Terms of like these are terms of like arrogance. They're terms of you're condemning someone's character. You're making a statement, and in this one, the one that maybe as you read through these things, holding a grudge, insulting someone, calling them worthless versus calling someone an idiot or a fool, the thing we would probably consider least big on this list, this is the one that Jesus is like, you're in danger of eternal judgment if this is what you've done. In other words, like in Jesus's court, this is a big deal. This is not a small matter. Murder's a big deal too, and it's something that you'll be judged for. But here's what Jesus is saying: if you've committed this sin too, this is something that God will hold you accountable toward. God takes very seriously this, and the question we should ask is why? Why is this such a big deal? And this commentary points out. I found it very helpful. He says there's a deliberate paradox of Jesus's pronouncement that ordinary insults may betray an attitude of contempt, or they might show that you have an attitude of contempt, which God takes very seriously. So the unhealthy anger that Jesus is addressing. Remember, there's healthy anger, the normal response to when you see evil, but now there's this unhealthy anger, which I would label as contempt. It's the feeling that a person or a thing is beneath consideration, it's worthless, it's deserving of scorn. Contempt is when you put yourself in a place of superiority over something else and declare it worthless, not worth anything. You demean its value. And the Bible Project has a really helpful video and illustration of this that they have a video on the Sermon on the Mount, but I just wanted to show you this part where they talk about contempt. So, Kelvin, you might have to help me out if this doesn't.
And then second, he'll reveal God's wisdom underneath the command.
Okay, let's jump in.
All right.
I think you can mute the band.
You have heard that it was said to the ancients, "You shall not commit murder."
He's quoting from the Ten Commandments.
And I say to you that every angry with his brother will be guilty in the court, and whoever says,
We're going to restart this, don't worry.
In the Sermon on the Mount. So Jesus will first quote a command from the Torah, and then second, he'll reveal God's wisdom underneath the command.
Okay, let's jump in.
All right. He starts with a pretty intense topic, murder.
Jesus begins, "You have heard that it was said to the ancients, 'You shall not commit murder.'
He's quoting from the Ten Commandments here.
And I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother will be guilty in the court, and whoever says to his brother, 'You good for nothing,' will be guilty in the high court." Wait, so Jesus is equating anger and name-calling with murder?
He got your attention, didn't he?
Yeah, but obviously murdering someone is worse than just getting mad and calling someone a name.
Sure, but that's not his point. Jesus is provocatively showing how murder, anger, and verbal abuse, they're all surface manifestations of something that is way deeper.
Which is...
How much you value or don't value someone's existence.
I see. Like murder is the ultimate way of saying that someone's life doesn't matter.
And so is losing your temper or belittling someone. These all reveal an attitude of superiority and contempt for the life of another person. It wreaks havoc in our relationships and communities, and it's worthy of serious consequences.
So the wisdom of this command is about way more than just murder. For Jesus, this command is about treating everyone as valuable.
Right. Jesus wants us to see that any time we demean or devalue other people, it's a failure to do right by them. His definition of righteousness means treating everybody as a fellow image of God.
Okay. So I love that line right at the end, is that Jesus's vision of righteousness is treating one another as a fellow image of God. And when we fall into contempt, this is what happens, is that we stop valuing other people. We treat them as less. This is like the root of many horrible sins, like racism or prejudice or even just, as it said, the name calling and the divisions among friend groups. Many things start at this place of what we don't recognize, but it's this place of starting to lose the value of another person. We devalue them. We don't care about their worth. And this is where I love the connection that's being drawn here. When you start down this path, the final destination, the way this comes to culmination, is murder. The ultimate act of not caring about another person's life or value is murder. You could care less about it. You could care less whether they live or die. This is what he's drawing towards. This is where this begins in the heart. And this to God is just as serious when you begin to devalue another person. And so the question we might be wondering, and I think is important to talk about, is how do you fight this? How do you recognize this? How do you fight this? And like most sin, the starting place here is going to God. When you see in your heart you have an anger problem, a problem with contempt, a problem of whether it's bashing people in your family or people online. I was thinking about this, like, today it is so easy. You see so many people who just fill up the comment section on social media, on YouTube, Instagram, wherever you might be, but the amount of contempt that pours out there, I don't know if you've fallen into that, how it's easy to write things when you're not, when you don't know the person or when you're not talking face to face, but that's where I've seen a ton of contempt. Another place I've seen it is driving. So many of you might have started driving, but the ability to just absolutely not care about another person and say things that are born of contempt, it shows itself there a lot. So if you begin seeing this in yourself, if you've seen this in yourself, whether it's any space of your life, here's what I think is the place to address it. First and foremost, going to God, seeking forgiveness for selfishness and arrogance. So a lot of the heart of contempt, like we talked about, it's placing yourself, it's being superior to someone else, devaluing them. And so going to God and letting him, like sitting with the gospel. Because one of the things when we go and ask for forgiveness to God is naturally humbling. It helps put us on the same playing field, because anger, the contempt we feel, the anger we feel, the reasons we're angry with other people, a lot of times there's valid reasons, but what we can lose sight of is that we are also flawed human beings. Going to God, going to the cross, reminding ourselves, asking for forgiveness, it's humbling and it helps us address things from the right perspective. It's like when Jesus talked about don't take the speck out of your brother's eye when you got a plank in your own eye. That's a humbling statement. It means you got a lot of stuff going on too, so don't just be always focused on other people's stuff. When we confront people, we can oftentimes come from a place of superiority, contempt, instead of compassion, and that's why things can blow up. Here's an example. The guy I shared a story about at the beginning. A healthy way to handle that for me would have been to feel the hurt and the anger, to let that emotion alert me like, hey, something he just said to me that hurt my feelings a lot. Maybe it played on my insecurities. Maybe it was because I was also like, I was hurt and then he poured salt on the wound. I should talk to him about it. And I should have waited till I wasn't in a mode of anger, and I should have approached him and been like, dude, that was kind of messed up that you said that right after I fell. Like, that hurt my feelings. That's what a man would have done, someone who was under control, who had their emotions under control and didn't run from the issue, but instead humbly didn't move from a place of anger. I think that's what this, all four of these things, it leads you to that place where you're able to not be ruled by your emotions, but to instead rule your emotions, let them act as a tool for you that's helpful. A way to get there, which is very difficult, when you find yourself in a place of contempt, when you have a grudge, when you're hating someone in your life, this is necessary. You got to pray for the person. God does a work not only in that person's life, but in your heart. He will help you see things you weren't seeing clearly. Anger has a way of blinding us. I don't know about you, but whenever I'm angry, every idea I have in how to respond seems self-righteous to me. It seems justified. When someone hurts me, I want to hurt them back, and every idea I come up with when I'm angry seems like a really good idea in that moment of anger. But when the anger subsides, there's a moment of clarity and you're like, oh man, I'm glad I didn't say those things or do those things, or you regret doing them if you have done them. And so there's this reality that anger can be blinding. We can feel so right. We see this actually in the Psalms. David prays this in Psalm 34. He's talking about these people he hates. Andrew, what's the Psalm? Is it 139, Andrew? Psalm 139 where he says, seek me and know my heart. It's whatever that psalm is. Okay, David's talking about how he hates these people. And he's like praying to God about it. And then he's saying, God, I utterly hate them. They're against everything good. And then he ends the psalm by saying, seek me and know my heart. Show me if there's anything in me that's wayward, that's off. So he tells God what's going on, but then he asks God, show me what of this is good, what is not. I think this is huge for us if we hope to grow and move out of being angry people, people who are led by their anger. This is necessary. And in doing this, what God will do in your heart, which is cool, is he'll teach you to prioritize the person more than the problem that's frustrating you. Oftentimes, this is what can get really off in conflict, is that we demean people because there's a problem, there's something that's hurt us, and we let go of how important the relationship is and the value of the other person, and we just do whatever it takes to win the argument or get what we want out of the problem. So just another thing to think about there. Obviously, this is important, but this is exactly what Jesus points to. The words we say that we think aren't a big deal, clearly to Jesus, our words matter. There's another verse that talks about we will be judged for every careless word we say. Like Jesus wants us to know that our words have power, they're important, and when we let contempt cause us to speak these things over other people, they can be extremely, extremely destructive. We need to know our words matter, our words have power, and careless words can cause wounds. And this is exactly what happened in the story I shared. It caused a whole rift in a friend group because I made fun, or I expressed my anger towards my friend in an unhealthy way, and that gave others the right to do the same thing. And that can be dangerous. It's like James says, it's like wildfire. It just grows and you can't contain it. And so being careful of our words is really important, especially not dehumanizing. And this was the last thing here is confronting issues before that contempt builds. One thing I think is important is I don't want you guys to hear that conflict itself is bad. In fact, I think the reason contempt builds up in our heart, this bitterness, grudge holding, hatred, I think it's because we avoid acknowledging problems, we avoid having conflict discussions, and we let the problem build and build and build until it explodes. Healthy confrontation is actually part of not letting contempt build. It's when you can have a hard conversation with someone in a healthy way. You're not letting anger drive you. You're waiting until anger subsides. I kind of jumped the gun on what I should have done with my friend, but I should have let that anger subside. I should have understood what it was that the problem was, and I should have addressed it with him. Had I done that, I would have prevented a lot of future blow up and pain. And even if I had realized this after the fact, I could have gone and apologized. I could have apologized for what I said or did. And I think having an understanding of this and how it grows and how it builds, it's so important. But this is what Jesus is drawing attention to. People who want to follow Jesus, they have to address this in their heart. His followers do not let themselves be ruled by anger. And here's how Jesus closes this idea. He says, if you're offering your gift at the altar, and this is the next verse after in the anger section. He says, if you're offering your gift at the altar, in other words, if you're worshiping God, if you are in church, if you are serving, if you're doing the religious things, and there remember that your brother has something against you. So this is like you've done something, or there's conflict. Leave your gift there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother, then come and offer your gift. Jesus wants us to understand that a part of worshiping God together, a part of true and proper worship is a united church, a united group, if you are in conflict with your friends and family and you are seeking to worship God, he's saying, hey, this is all tied together. There is a love that you are missing out on, that you are failing to live out. And this is more important to me than you looking good at church. Than you, like, in this context, right? He's like, I don't want to accept the offering, the sacrifice you're giving me when you are not actually living this out in your relationships. And so this, Jesus, again, he's being extreme. He wants this to grab our attention. And this is the last little thought here. This is the beatitude right after blessed are the pure in heart. He says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Instead of letting contempt drive us to places of division, the types of people that Jesus wants is the people who seek out peace. To be a peacemaker means you take a situation in which there is no peace, where there is conflict, and you help resolve it. You help bridge the gap. Whether this is in your friend group or in your own life, those who seek to restore and reconcile, those are the types of people that God calls his children. These are people who act like their father, because that's what God has done, right? God has sent Jesus into this world to reconcile, to bring together us who were enemies of God, and he has made peace. He's forgiven us. And this is now what he calls us to do. Jesus never calls us to do anything he doesn't do himself. And I would argue that Jesus faced a lot more reasons to be angry than we do. And so we can always look to him as our example, as the person who's gone before and has done this and shows us how to do this. And so if you're struggling even with the thought of I don't even know, I am so angry at this person and they've done so much wrong, if that's where you find yourself, then I think looking at Jesus is your only hope in moving towards health. Because Jesus faced a suffering and a mocking and a fate that we can't even imagine, and he didn't deserve any of it. He was righteous, he was good, and he endured these things out of love, out of a love for us and wanting to save us. And so if we're in that place and Jesus can forgive from that place, if we're in that place of contempt or bitterness, holding a grudge, I urge you to look to him and ask him for strength and help, because he loves to give that to those who ask, and he promises to. And so I hope this morning, if you're convicted at all, or if you feel challenged in this, that maybe you can find yourself somewhere in this chart. If you're fighting a grudge, fighting contempt, fighting an anger towards another, it would be awesome to move from today and step into doing this. Not just know this, but step into, God, what are you calling me to do about it? So I'll pray for us. Just to be honest, personally for me, I had to do a couple of number 1 and 2, seeking forgiveness and praying for a person, because I have some roots of bitterness that I don't like to think of myself as an angry person, but I think I can be like the Hulk at times, where it's I don't get angry, I'm just always angry, and I've learned to control it. So I notice these things in my heart. I notice there's a grudge or a bitterness, and I've been talking to God about that, so I'm excited for you guys to step into this too, because I've already seen him working on my heart. And again, I think Jesus chooses this issue because we all deal with it, so no shame if you do feel convicted by this. But do something about it. God, thank you for this morning. Thank you for just bringing your son down to this earth so that we could have forgiveness. God, we have all fallen short of your glory, but you still sought to restore us, to forgive us, to reconcile us. Help us to remember that forgiveness today. And would you just show us what it is you want us to step into from this? God, if there's relationships in our life that need repair, help us to know how to go about that, what we can do. And God, if there are people that have hurt us in ways that we don't even know how to move forward, would you give us wisdom and clarity in that? Would you help us to also just sit with your comfort that you've been through the same thing, that you know what it's like, and would you teach us, God, what it looks like to trust you as we strive for peace? Thank you for this morning, and in your name, amen.